So what I'd like you to do is watch for yourself, because it's hypocritical to comment about the D for Democrat, which you spent so much time talking about the fact that they had 7 Republican justices on the court, and you can watch it for yourself. You don't have to believe me. Punch in Maureen O'Connor YouTube this afternoon when you get back to work. And that's what I comment on that.
Thank you, Judge Russo. Question, please.
My name is Mearns. I'm a nurse, actually. Question I want to ask you, I work public health in an area here in Cleveland on the south side, and I've watched it crumble. And it had to do with the manner in which they were selling and giving loans and not checking people's credibility. I did hear you say, Justice O'Connor, that you would rely on volunteer assistance, but I think I'd like to use the disease model. When something is killing your city, you really do need more than volunteers. You need professional, be it firefighters or police, or can something like that be done legally? Thank you. Thank you both.
Judge Russo, please.
I think if I understand correctly, I think you started your question with regard to kind of the mortgage situation, the crumbling of all that. I work on our mortgage subcommittee. We had an interesting situation in Cleveland that at first City Council was pressuring us to foreclose faster because they felt that this was about 3 years ago, and actually passed something that said foreclose faster. We then instituted a series of provisions to begin to move our cases through the foreclosure system much quicker. We then realized, and everyone realized, the changing of our economy and the fact that many of these loans have been done with no paper at all. So what we did was we changed. We still moved them through the system fairly quickly, but we instituted a mediation program. You could go to even without a lawyer and go in there, and anyone can ask for it. Anyone can come in without a lawyer and say, I want to mediate it, and we'll mediate it. Because there was some talk about actually doing a moratorium. You can only imagine what a moratorium would have done to our banks here in town after what they've been through the last few months. But the bottom line was, we felt the mediation program was an excellent opportunity to have both parties sit down at the table with an impartial person to help them get through this crisis, because that's what it is. It's a crisis, and we're happy that we instituted the program, and it's been working, and it's working today.
Justice O'Connor.
I don't think that there's any doubt that people, especially here in Northeast Ohio, are experiencing some of the most significant results of the financial downturn. And that is why we have the Save the Dream program, which is a cooperative between the lending institutions and the individuals who are involved in home ownership, and to put an attorney on their team, with them, to be able to help them to negotiate maybe a different arrangement, or in some instances allowing them to refinance, or some other alternative. But I think the reality of the situation, prefaced on how you started your question, is there's been some unconscionable activity that has gone on, and the unfortunate result of that are people who find themselves in over their head, upside down on a mortgage based on the value of their property. It's a reality, and it's just one of the factors that the courts need to deal with.
Thank you. Next question over here, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you to both of you for coming. I am the father of 2 daughters. I came here today with 3 of my colleagues, lawyers who are all women, and it was striking to me, and this question is to Judge Russo, that when you were speaking about diversity, we had some other comments about diversity, that if you and Judge Sikora were to win your seats, the current Supreme Court is currently divided 4-3 with 4 men and 3 women. And if you were to win and Judge Sikora was to win, we would then only have 1 woman on the Supreme Court of Ohio. Does that matter? Should it matter in light of your comments regarding diversity and difference in background of the people making up the court?
Judge Russo?
That's an interesting question. I hadn't done the totals. I think the diversity in our courts is incredibly important, whether it be gender diversity or racial diversity. For a long period of time in our common police court, we had no African-American male judges. We now have 2. I've been a big advocate of diversity throughout my entire career, obviously as a discrimination lawyer, protecting people from discrimination. The fact that I'm a male, and that if and when I defeat Justice O'Connor, I would be a male and reduce the number of females on the court, really doesn't have any effect with regard to my views on diversity, and they're extremely strong. And I'm not sure whether or not Judge Peter Sikora, I guess it would reduce it to 5-1 and then give an opportunity for another woman down the road to run. But I don't think it really has one thing to do with it one way or the other.
Justice O'Connor, please.
I fully agree that that would probably be a travesty to have the gender so unbalanced on the Ohio Supreme Court. In reality, we've been asked that question, especially when we had a majority on the Ohio Supreme Court. And the women on the court will tell you, as will the men, your gender is really, should be neutral factor in how you make your decisions. We are bound by the Constitution and the laws of the state of Ohio, and gender really should not play a role in how you make your decisions.
Thank you. Question over here, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is for Justice O'Connor. I have 2 school-age children, and I'd like to know what is the current position of the Ohio Supreme Court in regard to educational financing.
Thank you for that question, because it gives me the opportunity to talk about the fact that we have no case before the Ohio Supreme Court. Once the court declared the current system of financing for schools to be unconstitutional, the ball was back in the court of the legislature and the governor. My understanding is the governor is working on task forces to come up with a program that he hopes to unveil in 2009. The court, as I said, has no case before it. We cannot sua sponte bring a case without, just because the issue is still out there and unresolved by the 2 branches of government that must work together in order to come up with a resolution to the issue of school funding. It's a real problem, it is a significant problem, and it's one of probably the top 3 problems that we have here in this state. And I would implore both the legislature and the governor to work together to resolve that issue of financing.
Judge Russo, please.
Duralf's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Duralf 4 was the last of the opinions with regard to this educational situation, and it comes remarkably close to being an advisory opinion. Do something. Just think if we had been Brown versus Board of Education, had been an advisory decision where you didn't order them to do something about it. I think that Justice Pfeiffer was correct in his opinion in that case, that we should quit nibbling around the edges and go get something done and fund our schools the appropriate way, because right now we're working under an unconstitutional system.
Question over here, please.
Question for both of you. Of the 9 current U.S. Supreme Court justices, whose opinions do you like the best and why?
Justice O'Connor, you get that hot potato right off the start.
Well, I always used to answer that question, Justice O'Connor. But at this point, I can tell you probably more importantly the ones that I don't agree, or that maybe the one that I'm least impressed by or favorable, and that would be Justice Scalia. Because if you remember the concurring opinion I wrote in the General Assembly versus Bruner case, I'm very concerned about the tone and the tenor and the message of even dissents. And that is, I think, so demeaning to the institution of the judiciary if we don't have justices that practice what we preach about civility at the bar and the bench level. It's a terrible example, I think, to give to the public. We have a very collegial bench here in Ohio. We're very fortunate to have that. We get along most of the time. We agree to disagree. And so that is a very fortunate configuration of our justices currently on the Ohio Supreme Court.
Judge Russo.
Well, rather than give you someone I don't like, I'll give you someone I think does a pretty good job, and that's Justice Kennedy. I think Justice Kennedy is a swing vote right now. Really believes in the rule of law. There was a great frontline done about 7 years ago where he talked about the importance of the rule of law and also the influence of money in the system. He recognized even back in 1999 the fact that we were going to have to deal with the issue of increasing amounts of money in our system. One race in Illinois cost $8 million. And he recognized right away, many years beforehand, now 9 years later, beforehand, that we had to remove that stigma from our system.